Windhager, Wood, inside 50. Wanganeen Miller! What a mark!
G'day everyone and welcome to the GameDay Squad Aussie Rules Fantasy Show. I'm Pitty and alongside Haz, we are the Fantasy Bros. We've partnered with GameDay Squad to bring you everything you need to know to succeed in GDS Aussie Rules this season, and we're recording this round preview show on Tuesday, the 23rd of June. Haz, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Busy time of term, obviously, as a teacher, end of the term. We've got assessment, we've got carnivals, plenty going on, obviously, in AFL as well. But no, it's good to be back for another show. Obviously, like I said, numerous times, change of days to Tuesday suits me to an absolute T. How are you going?
Yeah, good, mate. Like you said, very, very busy time of term. And yeah, in that fantasy space, that footy space, we always have the AFL women's we're starting to think about too, in terms of that new season kicking off in August, about the men's footy. And we're sort of, we're in round 16, we're coming up to round 16 in the men's, but we've got an eye towards that women's season. And we did an exciting pack opening video Saturday there, where some awesome cards, some legends, some diamonds, some all-stars, we packed those, mate. And yeah, to all our viewers, you can see it on screen there. Make sure you hit up our socials and check it out on YouTube. Just search at FantasyBros AU and you can check it all out. And just make sure if you haven't signed up to GameDay Squad, use that code there, FBAR26. Get yourself 3 9-player common packs. And yeah, you can get your journey with GameDay Squad started. But mate, I'm pumped for women's and I'm pumped for a big round 16.
Yeah, 100%. So am I. Can't wait to get into the women's comp. Obviously, like you said, that stream on Saturday, if you haven't listened to it, go and give it a listen. Pulled some elite cards for the season, obviously with that new legend drop rate. So obviously happened in the men's. It's now happening in the women's as well. So get over there and get some packs while you can.
Yeah, that's it. Now, mate, let's have a look. How did we go in round 15, which was our second last buy round for those mid-season buys, and we're approaching the last of those mid-season buys, thankfully. But I feel like this one coming up is going to be the hardest so far. I felt like last week was really tough, but I feel like this one's going to be tougher. So before we get to talking about that, how did you go in round 15 around the grounds?
Yeah, look, it was a pretty decent week. I had 6 top 20 finishes, so all comps in the top 20, which is, I think, for the first time this season. Obviously, prime time normally lets me down there, normally hovering at about 30th or 40th. But yeah, managed to get a top 20 there, which I was stoked about. 8th in under 22s was my best performance. Came 9th in Sundays. Was hoping for a little bit of a better performance there, but just missed a couple. Missed Hugo Garcia, which really hurt me. Other than that, I had 3 top 15 finishes in my standard competition. So it's a pretty decent round overall. What about yourself?
Yeah, you take that. That's awesome, mate. In form, absolutely. My best was second in under 22s. That's 2 weeks in a row now. I finished second in the under 22s, and you can sort of see on screen there, if you're watching this on YouTube, my title there, the Inform under 22 coach. Had a few nice pods that did really well there for me. Obviously, a Jai Murray, namely Max Michaelani in the background, in the back line. So a few of those pods, mate, they went hard for me. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, I still fell short to GDS Cal. He took the win off me there with his Legend Wardlaw and his All-Star Sheasel. And, credit to him, though. He had a really good round. Other than that, though, not too bad. Held on in Classic. I think I was 30th not 30th, 22nd, I think it was from memory there. Just outside that top 20, but it was all quite tight too, so I wasn't actually that far off. Yeah. And 11th in Challenger as well, so pretty good. I just don't know what I'm doing in Contender, hey? Like, I feel like every week I pick a pretty solid side and then just make some changes just to make it a bit different, and it always just doesn't quite work out. So that's okay. At least, the one I'm prioritising, I'm sitting, I think, 9th in the seasonal leaderboards, which is good, and hopefully can cling on to that prize card territory. Yeah. But what about your stars and scars, mate? Who let you down this past week, and who stood up for you?
I don't know how many times I've told you, but you need to just, once you've set your team, just leave it. You always make it worse. Just let it be. I know, Contender, you're not taking it seriously, but just let it be for once, and I think you'll be surprised with the result. Anyway, so stars and scars around the grounds. Noah Anderson, he was just an absolute jet on Friday night against the Hawks. He's in some elite form at the moment, 170 GDS points in a relatively tricky matchup against that Hawks midfield who have been quite restrictive this year. So I played a gold in Classic and a diamond in Challenger. So those are my 2 main comps, so benefiting those salary plays there. And then my scars is it's a bit of a toss of the coin here who I wanted to give it to. So I decided to give it to both of them. Cozzy Pickett was just quite underwhelming for all coaches. Obviously, he was very highly popular in all standard competitions. Just couldn't quite get it done. He had a disappointing second half. But the main one for me was John Noble. And we sat here last week talking about, is he a plug and play? We didn't play him the week before. We decided to play him. I sat here saying he'll probably score under 80. And geez, I wasn't far off it. He only scored 104, so he only just managed to crack that ton. But it was more the role. It was not what we've been seeing from him as of late. He was up on a wing at times, and yeah, it was just not good viewing. So that's the reason he's got my scar, because I've missed a couple of good ones and I play him for that poor one. So what about yourself?
Yeah, well, especially when, there were some other good players going around the back line too, where you could have gone somewhere else and you would have been better for it. And I think Cozzy copped some attention from James Peatling as well on the weekend. So something to keep an eye on in terms of those other games, those damaging forwards or mids that can, damage forward of the ball as well. But mate, Noah Anderson, just before I move on to my star and scar, here are his last few scores: 170, 153, 99, 141, 143, 138. Incredible, hey? Like, he has just been on some sort of tear, and I can't wait to talk about him later because I think he shapes as a very interesting pick this week given the matchup. But yeah, mate, my star there was Jordan De Goey on screen, 138 in our forward line. He was a genuine pod too, so just that nearly 140 score from a forward line player was absolutely beneficial. And especially when those last couple picks, they don't quite fire like you'd hope, it really just helps to keep you with the pack there at those spots where we're really throwing a couple darts during these bye rounds. So Jordan De Goey, he was my star, and Max Hall was my scar, 81. Had a really good first half. He was on 52 at halftime, and I thought, beautiful, we're humming along here. I'm nailing this. And he just limped to an 81, unfortunately. But he was also a bit unlucky. I think he had a couple goals. Well, he had one goal taken off him for running too far, but I think he also missed a couple chances as well. So it was a bit of what could have been day for a Max Hall. He's been a pretty solid pick all year. So, yeah, my scar for the weekend, but a score of 81. I probably can't be too picky there with that.
Yeah, I also played Max Hall in Classic, so I was watching along with you. And that goal was a bit unfortunate, but I think they got the decision correct. He definitely did run way too far. But obviously, as fantasy coaches, that's not what we want to hear or see.
We don't see it that
way. We just want the points, and yeah, it was just unfortunate.
Yeah, I watched those points get taken away from him on DFS. I had seen it, and they paid the goal, and I was just watching. He went up to 76, I think it was, and that was obviously before 3/4 time. And then you see there was probably 6 minutes left in the third quarter, and then you just see it taken off him, and he goes back to 60 something,
64.
and then he comes and sits on the bench for the rest of the quarter, and I just went, what a swing! Like, what a swing to end your Sunday. So. Yeah, he can cop the scar, mate. And
he was also handball happy as well.
Yeah. I'd love to actually probably look at his CBAs too. I feel like he's been playing a lot forward of the ball in those last couple of weeks. Just a bit of a gut feel watching games. Mate, there are our fixtures. Do you want to talk us through what we got for round 16?
Yeah, so obviously we've got the last bye round of round 16. We've got the Bulldogs, the Saints, Cats, and the D's on the bye this week. So obviously not selecting any of those players in our GameDay Squad sides this weekend. In our Stats Live primetime fixtures on Thursday night, we have the Lions up against the Swans, the grand final rematch from 2024. We have the Hawks versus the Giants, which should be a cracker of a game at MCG on Friday. On Saturday, we've got the Blues versus West Coast. Can Blues make it 6 straight? We'll wait and see. We've got the Pies against the Tigers, and then we got the Showdown on Saturday night, which should be an absolute cracker as well. Obviously, the Informed Crows up against the Power. And then on FantasyBros Sunday Showdown fixtures, we've got North versus the Bombers for the second time this year. And then to round out probably what might be maybe the game of the weekend is the Dockers versus the Suns over at Optus.
Yeah, that shapes as such an exciting game, that one. It's a bit of a rematch last year, to that elimination final. Yeah. Oh, what a game. If that gets any close, anywhere near what that sort of game was, that spectacle, it should be a great contest. But just Freo in themselves, 13 in a row, playing incredible football. I think they're probably the toughest away trip in footy at the moment.
100%.
Yeah, so it sort of shapes. That's why we talked about Noah Anderson before. I think that's why he's such an interesting pick this week, because this has been a game I've been very keen to avoid we talked about Max Holmes last week, and I said he was the avoid. And you looked at me like I was, I'd touched down from another planet. But even with Bailey Smith out of the side, it was actually probably not a bad call. Like 111 was just, it was okay. I mean, I played it in Classic
It's
in the
what we
end, and I was happy
expected.
with that. Yeah, I think we said low
Yeah.
ton. So, yeah, it's an interesting pick this week for somebody who is in as hot a form as Noah Anderson, and really for someone who has looked so good too. So we'll chat about that more soon. But yeah, how about that? Hey, so Bulldogs, Saints, Cats, and Demons. There are some
Yeah.
massively relevant fantasy players on this bye.
Yeah, no doubt we'll touch on all of them as we go through the lines. But yeah, you're right. There's so many players unavailable this week. So it's definitely going to be a tricky week, and it's probably going to be the hardest week to navigate for the buys.
Yep.
The hardest to last, of course.
100%. And we talked about how, people's all-star card collections would have been taking a bit of a hit this week. Obviously, we've got injuries. Obviously, Jack Sinclair, for example, who's unfortunately his calf, and who knows how bad that is, but there's talk that he might be out for the season, so to speak. And, well, he's an all-star card there. And, yeah, obviously you got a few more on the buy as well. So it's going to be interesting. So this week, given that interesting round we've just spoken about, we've got a bit of a different way to do this show. We are actually going to, instead of going through a range of different picks, because everything's been sort of thrown out of whack this week with the week that it is, we thought we'd do a consensus team build on the fly and talk through our players as we build our squads. So I'm going to share this screen now, mate, and we're going to build this in my contender team.
Yep, love it. Should we, whatever we pick here, you've got to leave in for the weekend. You can only adjust the salary.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Oh, come on.
You know me, mate. All right, let's do it.
You only make it worse.
But there's got to be exceptions, right?
Okay.
Yeah, well, I do. There's got to be exceptions. Obviously, team news.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to be dependent on that. I feel like every week we record so early in the week. There's a lot that happens, and particularly that ruck line, people get named or something like that, and that sort of changes how we think. So obviously, pending some stuff at teams, but otherwise, I'll leave it in there.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good.
And yeah, I think we'll aim to just build like a bronze team, so like a base contender team. But then we might have a quick chat at the end around salary. Or if I don't have a bronze card, I've got a silver, then we'll just chuck the silver in. But we'll navigate that as we go. So kick it off. Defenders. Just quickly run through who are the main defenders on a buy.
So obviously, already mentioned Jack Sinclair. Unfortunately, went down injured, only on 2 points last weekend. It is a pretty serious calf injury. From a report. So like you said, he's probably looking to miss the rest of the season, which is a big shame for St Kilda, and it's a big shame for fantasy coaches alike. So alongside him, obviously, is his superstar teammate Naz, who absolutely blitzed it on the weekend. We also got another Saint in Callum Wilkie, Bailey Dale, and then Jake Bowie are probably the most relevant defenders on the bye this week.
All right. So in terms of the locks then, who can we put away this week so far? So I'm going to throw you 3 names. Let me know if you agree. Yeah. Ash and Whitfield against the Hawks at the MCG. I think they're just locks for our sides in the week, that is. And I know you've got a point about Whit you want to raise, but I think they're locks regardless of that. And then Josh Dacos is probably the third lock that I have for me. And again, that's probably more this week anyway, and just his matchup against Richmond and obviously the number of players we have on the bye. So do you have an objection to any of those 3 names?
No, 100%. Like I said, like you said, I do have something to say about the GWS boys, but I still think in the week that is, they're still locks, and I don't think what I'm saying will say is going to change my mind about that. But obviously, it was Roscoe mentioned it in the GDS Discord the other day. That Iden and Himmelberg combined for 11 out of 16 kick-ins to the GWS Giants on the weekend against Carlton, which meant Lockie Whitfield only had 3 and Ash only had 2. In the last quarter, Lockie Whitfield played solely forward. He only had 1 disposal in that last quarter to really stink it up and not put a decent score on the board. It's something to potentially consider, but in a week where we've got so many unavailabilities, I still think you plug them in regardless. Obviously, we know what they can be like on their ceiling. And I just think that it's probably going to shift back to the defensive roles this week against the Hawks. I think it was just an in-game move to try and change something against the Blues because they were chasing points. So yeah, just one to consider maybe.
Yeah, and I feel like Kingsley wouldn't have been happy with that either. I feel like he's not happy with how the team's performing and he wants something a bit different. But, I think knowing what Lockie Whitfield can do, I think it'd be probably very brave or very silly, maybe a bit of both, to be fading on a week like this. What about a Jaden Short? I feel like he's another one I'm super confident in.
Yeah, I think we can
Up against Magpies.
plug in Jaden Short this week. He's got a great matchup. Scored 115 points last week against North, who are a pretty restrictive side for opposition defenders. So I think he should go well, even though Sam Banks has come back into the side and they are kind of sharing the role a little bit. I still think he's probably their main ball user in the back 50.
Yeah, so I was just having a look here in terms of Jaden Short. His last two against the Collingwood Magpies, 117 and 110. That was scores in 2025 and 2024 respectively. So yeah, can score well. He's averaging 113 in his last two, and I think that he's just probably a pretty safe pick on a week like this. I'm not sure what his ceiling will be like, particularly with Sam Banks coming back. But speaking of Sam Banks, he's one I sort of flagged this week who could be a bit of a point of difference. We know how good a player he is. Obviously, in our preseason, we talked about Sam Banks quite a bit. And he's actually had a good couple last weeks coming back from injuries. He had a bit of, he was unlucky so far this year in terms of the year he's put together. He's been injured. Like he had a game there where he was injured on 2. I think it was in round 6, for example. But in his last 2 weeks, he's gone 103 and 113, and one of those was against the Lions. So he's just won. Do you reckon there's enough ball that could be back there against the Magpies in that positive matchup where you could pick a Jaden Short and a Sam Banks?
No, I wouldn't be going both. I would pick one or the other. I think Banks, like you said, is your pod if you are chasing that point of difference in a tricky week. But saying that, I think there's probably more reliable players across the board and probably looking to spread teams as well. I don't think the Tigers get in touching distance against the Pies this week, and I don't know. I just don't want to load up too many defenders against the Pies.
Yeah, that's the only thing. How you never feel good about picking a lot of Tigers because they don't really score a lot of fantasy points as a team. But if they're ever going to score fantasy points, it's down in the back line. It's those two boys. So I don't mind that pod play. So if you're not going that way, John Noble, he's one of our plug and plays. We elevated him last week. What are we going to do? Is he still a plug and play? A couple of things. Okay, here's what I'll raise. Freo over in the West. I hate that matchup. I do not want to play him in that matchup. They are the 4th hardest matchup for the season. They're only allowing about 72.3 GDS points on average to opposition defenders. Recently, they're actually a bit more neutral. They're actually the 8th hardest. So, yes, slightly more neutral recently to those opposition defenders. But it's just not one that I really love. The only thing I will say with a John Noble, Dan Rioli, obviously copped a big hit from Josh Weddle, so he's actually going to be injured. He's out for a few weeks with that. I think it's a broken jaw. I think he had some surgery on that jaw
4 to
as well.
6 weeks. It's come out today for Rioli.
So if that's the case, if they were playing John Noble on a bit of a wing at times last week, maybe they just throw him straight back behind the ball, or they just go, nah, you just keep doing what you're doing down in that back line, and maybe that market share will be back there. So even in that tough matchup, maybe he's actually a bit of a safe play this week, even though I hate it. Like, how do you feel about that matchup?
Yeah, look, I don't love the matchup. Obviously, we talk about it quite a bit. We talked about it a lot last week, targeting players against Freo. Obviously, they are the form team of the competition at the moment. But in a week like this, where we do have limited players to choose from, obviously, we know Noble has an elite ceiling. Obviously, we probably can't expect that. But saying that he did score 104 points last weekend in what was probably a quiet game for him. So in a week where limited options, he's probably a reliable, safe pick. If I'm just looking at his last 3 against the Dockers, it doesn't scream pick me. 93 in the elimination final last year, and then 100 and 102 before that. So consistent, but obviously he is on another level this year. And I think with Rioli being out, I definitely think that wing time that he had last week, that'll be gone.
Well, some recent scores, I just pulled this up on Stats Lab, round 15. So last week, Lawson Humphreys over there had 116. He was their main ball user out of the back line when Max Holmes went through the midfield with Bailey Smith laid out. Caleb Daniel the week before, 110. Darcy Wilmot the week before in round 12. Or obviously, they had a bye in round, was it 14,
Yeah.
I think it was. Darcy Wilmot had 150 on them. The week before that, Jack Sinclair 122. So there's typically one player each week that will go quite well or who can do well against them. So, yeah, I'm actually really scared by going against a John Noble, even though I don't like this. So maybe we plug
I
him
think he's just a popular pick. I think he's going to be probably at that 30 to 35% across all competitions this week. So I think you just got to kind of go with the majority and just play him regardless of the matchup.
maybe consider salary. Maybe that's where you can sort of differentiate yourself from the
Yeah.
others if you're not keen on the matchup. So maybe in a contender we're playing a bronze, for example. In a classic, maybe maximum silver for us.
Yeah.
That's initial thoughts anyway for me. All right, where do we go? We've got 2 more spots.
All right. Well, do you have anyone that kind of we'll talk another point of difference? I think we've pretty much got 5 picks on the screen that everyone's kind of go, okay, they're pretty much plug and plays this week. Is there anyone that kind of stands out as a potential pod for you?
There's a few. I'll give you a few. One I'm actually not super keen on is Nick Newman. I have been keen on Nick Newman in the past, but I don't love this one against West Coast at Marvel Stadium. I feel like I've used Carlton to target some easier teams in the past few weeks, and I've been burned by it with a Sam Walsh and a Nick Newman. And West Coast actually, for designated kickers, they're actually not a great matchup. Recently, we know that they've been using a Milan Murdoch, for example, to shut down the opposition's designated kicker out of that back line. And they actually do play with some real pressure in that frontal half. So, I don't love that. What does StatsLab have for them in terms of that recent matchup? See, they have them as a positive matchup, and that's what makes me, it makes you want to look at them and look at a Nick Newman, but everything kind of tells me I don't really want to target that. If you look at the full season, they're a neutral matchup for defenders. But yeah, that sorting by designated kickers, they're a difficult matchup. They're the 5th hardest on in terms of DVP on DFS Australia. So I don't love that matchup. And I feel like there's a few other picks that I'm looking at. So it could be a Caleb Daniel, for example, this week up against the Bombers. Another good matchup for him. Last week was good as well, but this week is also a good matchup. Darcy Wilmot against the Swans at the Gabba. I know you're not a massive fan of that matchup, but I just think the role there with Zorko being out, Kitty's still not back in. I know Ryan Lester might come back in, but I feel like Darcy Wilmot could be a bit of a safe play as well. And Carl Amon is probably the third I'm looking at. Obviously, Jarman Impey, he injured his hamstring last week up there at the Gold Coast, so he's going to be out for a few weeks as well now. That was confirmed there today. So it really means in terms of that ball use out of the back line for the Hawks, it's pretty much Carl Amon, and you've got a James Sicily down there as well. I kind of like a Carl Amon at the MCG this week. I'm really liking that pick.
All right, can we just go back to Newman for a sec? So Newman last week scored 128 against the Giants, who are, I think, roughly around a relatively neutral matchup for opposition defenders. But saying that was only his 4th score over 120 for the season. Yes, he seems to get a little bit of the ball. He's probably their main ball distributor. But does Milan Murdoch potentially go to him to navigate his use out of the back line?
I think he kind of has to, because that's what we've seen West Coast do in the past few weeks. So, it doesn't sit comfortably with me picking him, knowing I've seen that a few times.
Yeah.
Even though I think it is probably a good matchup for those defenders. So, I don't think I can go there.
No, I'm not keen on him either. If we're talking, obviously, Noble has that elite ceiling and is a reliable scorer. Newman might be reliable, but he's only got 1 score over 130. So you're probably not chasing an elite ceiling this week, especially potentially with some attention coming his way.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not keen on a Nick Newman. Darcy Wilmot, yes, you're right. I don't love the matchup. Obviously, the Swans. Thing I do probably like though is at least it's at the Gabba. So I don't mind that. Obviously, like you mentioned, still no Zorko, which is a massive plus for Wilmot. He is the main ball distributor in that back line. He's been on an absolute tear recently and scored some nice scores. I'll pull them up in front of me.
And just while you talk about that too, mate, in terms of the Swans, we typically think them as one of the really toughest opposition matchups for the defenders, but they're actually the 7th hardest matchup this year. So they're a little bit more neutral than I thought. I thought they were in that sort of top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So that surprised me. And actually, with a Darcy Wilmot, before you get into his recent scores, against the Swans, mate, they're actually his 5th best matchup for his short career to date. And his last 3 scores against the Swans have been 124, 129, and 112. So without a Zorko in the side, he's actually got the form against the Swans and it's at the Gabba.
Yep.
So what's his recent form?
So since Zorko's been out of the side in round 9, Wilmot's gone 135, 118, 150, 125, 127.
Yeah.
It's hard to ignore.
Yeah, 100%. And those kick-ins, he's really got the monopoly on that. He did share a little bit with Jasper before they went on their bye. I think he had 4 from memory. Jasper had 3, or it was thereabouts. And the week before then, Moddy had most. But he's got some kick-ins there. I just feel like he's with Zorko out. I think we can almost just be putting him into that side.
All right, plug him in.
Well, before I do, let's talk about Caleb Daniel, because I think we've got to whittle these 3 down into 2. So could you go with Caleb Daniel? Is that? I don't think it's points chasing, only because they're playing 2 good matchups in a row.
Yep.
Richmond, they are the 6th best matchup for opposition defenders this season, and the Bombers are the 2nd best. So if you liked him last week, I think you should like him again this week. And just the way that he uses that ball out of the back line, or the way they look to use him, particularly with Colby not spending a lot of time there, it's him. Really, he's getting a heap of that footy. We know that Luke Park has been doing well there too, but I just think that Caleb Daniels one we have to talk about.
I do think it's points chasing. You just got to look at his scoring throughout the season. If you take last week's game away, his highest score before that was a 134. So last week was just an anomaly in a way. 40 disposals, 16 marks. Like, that could probably be nearly a career high for him. Yeah. I just, obviously, even though the matchup with the Dons is still another good matchup, if we're looking at the score from earlier in the season, he scored 105 against them. So obviously that's respectable, probably this week. So if he does something similar to that, then you definitely take that. I don't know. I'm expecting a big crash for some reason, and just someone that I'm not really keen on.
Okay.
Because, I just really don't like chasing their points from last week, especially when they pop a massive one like that and they haven't shown consistency before. Because before that, he went 63 against the Eagles in round 14. So that's the risk. That's a 100-point turnaround.
And again, we know that we've just said they're typically a good matchup for opposition defenders, but we don't like Nick Newman for that reason, because you can see someone like a Caleb Daniel who's been scoring pretty well. Yeah, he can do a score like that, and we don't love that matchup. Well, that's the risk, I guess, with the West Coast Eagles. So, all right. So if we go Carl Amon, then I think we're both happy with him at the MCG. Jarman Impey out. Market share is there. Ball user, wide ground. I reckon that he'll be pretty solid. And then a Darcy Wilmot for, again, just given that role with Zorko being out. And then I think
the last one,
we've mentioned a couple options you could look at.
The last one I'll throw at you is Rory Laird. We mentioned him last week. He's got the Power, who are actually a pretty tricky matchup for opposition defenders, but he has been very solid recently. Is he someone that could potentially come into consideration?
Yeah, it's not a matchup that I'm really going to go out of my way to chase, that Port Adelaide one. Like they're sort of middle of the pack in terms of that opposition defender. I think last week was the one where I would have looked at him with that really positive, juicy matchup. Maybe not this week against Port Adelaide, when we've still got Wayne Miller there. We've still got Rory Laird. Mark Keane has come back into the side, and he had a great game in that first one back. So,
and Worrell's going to come back in as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think you definitely can go Rory Laird, but not this week for me. That's all.
Yeah, maybe there's just too many people to feed down there.
Yeah,
this week.
And when there's going to be more points available in that back line in a really positive matchup, that's where I would target him. Maybe a bit of chippy in the back line, for example, but I just feel like, the Showdown, I don't feel like it's going to go that way, so it's not one for me.
Yep, fair enough. Alrighty, midfielders.
Yeah, so who are we locking away straight away? Oh, even before we do that, on a buy. Bailey Smith, Max Holmes, Marcus Bontempelli, Ed Richards, your boy Matty Kennedy, they're all on a buy.
He's not my boy, that's for sure.
Did you like that I had to put him in there too?
Oh, yeah. He's definitely not one that I would put on a buy list and never play him again.
He's like Toby Green. He's on your punch list, I reckon.
Oh, he's ahead of Toby Green, I reckon.
Right, well, I'm just going to
So
go
yeah,
away here,
obviously.
and I'll go away Nick Dacos.
All right. Well, while you do that, obviously the big news that's come out today at the time of recording, Sydney superstar Errol Goulden is returning from injury this week against the Brisbane Lions. Obviously, we know what an absolute jet he is in fantasy scoring wise. Obviously, he's an absolute gun in AFL landscape as well. But saying that, I am not keen on an Errol Goulden this week. I think for the matchup against the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba on a Thursday night, I think he potentially comes back on limited time on ground. I definitely don't expect him to roll through the CBA mix. So he's one that I'm definitely watching this week with a keen eye on for next week.
Yeah, it's tough. It's Errol Goulden. I find it very hard to leave him. I agree with everything you said. It's just so tough when you get such a good player, like one of the genuine best players in the whole competition, come back in. It's just very hard to go against them. But yeah, I think it knocks him down the order this week in terms of the mids I'm picking. And you've seen there on screen, mate, who I've sort of plugged in, Nick Dacos against the Tigers. I think we don't overthink that. I think last year he had a monster score against the Tigers. Like, he really filled his boots. But he's on another level this year, Nick Dacos. And
yeah.
mate, I give my son stick for going for the Magpies and oh, I can't believe I just said that. But and he loves Nick Dacos, but I give him stick for it. But geez, he's a good player. Like, he's an absolute star last week. That was incredible. 174, I think, GDS points. And yeah, he's just a lock this week. And I think he's one where in a contender you'd be trying to, if you had a gold, you'd be trying to play his gold card.
Yeah.
So the other one I'm going to lock in is Jordan Dawson. In his last 4 games against the Power in those showdowns, he's had 125, 90, 148, and 121. And again, he looks like for someone who plays at such a high level, he looks like he's leveled up again this year, and he's looking like an All-Australian captain this year. So I think I'm going to lock in a Jordan Dawson, and I'm going to lock in a Zach Butters as well. I think in the same game, he is someone that I'm pretty keen to play. He's one of our plug and plays every single week. I don't know if he'll get attention this week. I'm not sure if they will. Like, do you see Butters as someone they'll send someone to, like with a James Peatling, for example, or could a Peatling maybe sit on a Jason Horne-Francis, who's been incredible? He's been tearing it up, really, and he probably poses more of a threat to the scoreboard and that threat forward of centre than a Zach Butters does.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. My answer is I actually don't know. I'm not sure. I think Butters is still a plug and play regardless. Obviously, he's copped attention pretty much every game for the last month.
Every week, really.
Yeah, pretty much. He got to 121 last week, and Ed Allen spent a little bit of time on him around the ground. The week before that, he got to 127. So
yeah,
the week before that, 84, which was his only score under 100 this season. So he's been super consistent, and that's the reason, obviously, he's a plug and play for us. So it's hard.
His last 5 scores against the Crows, he's averaging 135 GDS points.
Yeah.
Last 2, 131, 143. He's had a 174 in there as well back in round 23 of 2024. So I think he's one that I'm also going to put a bit of salary on too.
Yeah. And it was actually interesting, and the commentators raised this. I watched the start of the game against the Pies on Saturday night, and he didn't start in the CBAs for the second week in a row. And the week before, we kind of flagged that he only had 63% CBAs, which Joe Richards had more than him. But that went back up to 76% to be the main banana again in that midfield. So I definitely see him being right in the middle, the thick of the action in the showdown. He loves playing the Crows, and this potentially could be his last one, I believe, because I think they've already played this season, haven't they?
Yes, I believe so.
So yeah, obviously all rumours that he will not be at Port Adelaide next year. So if that's the case, then he'll be wanting to put a good foot forward in his last showdown.
Yeah. So where are we going after that then? Isaac Heaney, another plug and play for us against the Lions. You don't like an Errol Goulden, and again, I'm not as hot on him either. I sort of have him down my list because of that. He's coming back from injury for so long. Lions at the Gabba. But an Isaac Heaney, are we putting him straight in?
I think so, yes. No, I looked into this one a little bit because at first I was, once again, not loving the matchup. And when I looked into his scores this season, his lowest score for the season was against the Lions in round 1 when Jared Berry tagged him to that 81 GDS points. But during that game, he actually pushed forward a little bit more than normal, had a season low 50% CBAs. But saying that, he's got a pretty decent history against the Lions. Before that game in round 1 this season, he went 138 at the Gabba last year and 123 in these last two. In round 22 last year at the Gabba, he kicked 5 goals from 23 disposals. So once again, I think it's just hard to leave out a player like that who has impact on the scoreboard and can collect disposals at will.
He sits in that category with the John Noble Hay. He's one that they're in the category of you probably shouldn't play given the matchup, but they also fit in the same category of if you don't play them, they can ruin your week. So, with his ability that he's shown to push forward and he's so good through the midfield, he's one that wouldn't surprise me where he actually does have a really good game there at the Gabba. So we'll plug him in then. Where do we go next? Noah Anderson. We talked about his form at the start of the year, and I listed off some of those scores. To me, I don't want to play him against Freo.
Yeah, look, once again, it's one of those weeks where I don't love any matchup, so I'm going to have to pick someone in a matchup that I don't love.
Yeah, and who said that before?
Yeah, I think you must have said that to me maybe the other day.
Almost word for word.
Noah Anderson is probably one of the form players of the competition from a GDS perspective. So maybe in a matchup that you don't love, kind of just like a John Noble, maybe you just go, okay, he's going to be highly popular. Everyone's going to play him after his 170 last week, regardless of the matchup. Limited picks this week. Maybe you do just put him in. I am struggling to really find who I like it, especially M7 this week, and maybe Anderson is the guy that just kind of gets put there. His last 3 against Freo, he's gone 124, 140, and 89. And that 124 was in the elimination final at Optus, so he's got the scoring history over there. But obviously, as we mentioned, Freo are the hardest matchup for opposition mids this season. So, it's just not there.
We've seen Sam Walsh, though, over there do a 157. That was his highest score for the season. That was sort of a bit of an anomaly as well. And I think Taranto scored well over there too earlier in the year.
Have we decided that we're going to lock in Noah Anderson this week against Freo on Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, I think so. I think we do, given the form, and he's actually scored well against them. I think 2 of those boxes are being ticked. So, let's put him in. And then if we change our mind back, but I think he'll be a pretty safe pick this week.
All right, perfect. All right, now same game. Talk to me about Andy Bray.
Yeah, I like an Andy Bray this week. He's one that was really standing out to me, and I think that this is a game I'm getting a bit of a read on. I do feel like Freo is going to have the upper hand in this game, and the Gold Coast Suns, like on paper, if you're looking through StatSlab in their positional matchup data, it says that the mids aren't the best matchup. They're the 5th hardest, in fact, in the last 5 weeks, but that doesn't really compute with my footy brain and what I've seen. If you actually have a look at the DVP data there at DFS and you dive into more particular, like which mids are scoring well, like we have a look at our inside mids there, in the last 5 there, on DFS, Gold Coast Suns are actually the 4th best matchup for those inside mids. And in particular, for the last 10, they're actually the 3rd best matchup. So they do leak points to opposition mids, and I think there can be a few good scores going around for these Freo Docker players. And I think an Andy Brayshaw is going to be a nice, safe play there for us if you're looking for one of them. I don't feel like we can be picking Caleb Sarong with any real confidence, although I know he scored well on them in the past. But an Andy Bray, he had 148 last week thanks to 16 disposals in that 3rd quarter just to get the Dockers over the line there against the Cats. And, his recent form against the Suns has been pretty good too. He's had 131, 133, and 155 in his past 3 games against the Suns. So he loves scoring against them. It's played over in the West. Good matchup against the Suns. I just feel like this one is, on the week that is, I feel like I'm pretty confident in this pick.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't love it, though, I have to say. I feel like, once again, we come back to the Caleb Daniel discussion of chasing last week's points. That was his first score over 120 since round 7. He has shown a consistency to kind of just tick over the ton every week, but hasn't really been able to put together that kind of elite average that we were probably wanting from our top line midfielders. It's probably the only flag. If we're looking at his CBAs from last week, he was actually the highest CBA getter for the Freo Dockers. 75%, tied with Luke Jackson. The next best midfielder was Murphy Reed with 59. So he's their number one banana in there, even though they've got their full complement back. So that's maybe one good thing going for him. I don't know, I just think there might be some better options that we might talk about shortly that I've got ahead of him just at the moment. But the matchup, I think, once again, like you said, even though it says on the DVP that the Suns are a hard matchup, I think he should be all right.
Yeah, and I think the thing with chasing points is that, it sort of implies like that the matchup's not there. I think that's what point chasing is when you're picking a player purely based off last week's performance. Whereas with Bray, I'm picking him based off this week's upcoming fixture. So that's the thing for me that I really like. So, all right, let's hold him. So he's one of the players that could go into these last two spots. What about a Zach Merritt? Because I think he's going to be a really popular pick, and he's one of the best mids going around so far this year. Being available for selection, coming off their bye, he should be a good pick, right? Like, he's playing that nice halfback role we love, and he's had scores of 150 and 143 just before the bye there with that role change. And he's had a low score of 109 since round 8. But he also boasts the ceiling. He's hit 172 against the Tigers, like in that same span. So I think that he's one we have to consider. However, there comes a flag, doesn't there, mate, with the matchup?
Yeah, so there was this one when I first looked at my teams on Monday afternoon that I was like, okay, he's straight in. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, hold up. This is actually one of the tricky matchups for him. We obviously saw early in the season, everyone was super keen on him for the matchup against the Kangas, and Finn O'Sullivan kept him to just the 81 GDS points. And as we spoke about at the time, it would have been a lot worse if it wasn't for that late goal that really helped save his score. He only had 10 disposals and only the one mark. And I think he had 9 tackles to really obviously get the score ticking along as well. So there is the potential, obviously, for Finn O'Sullivan maybe to do that again. But the question remains, do they tag him at halfback, even if he's not in that midfield? I think they probably still do. Just looking back at some previous numbers. So before that 81, he had 2 score. Last year before that, 137 and 87. And that 137, he didn't get tagged. That 87, he was tagged. And then the 2 games before that, he was also tagged. So that's 4 out of the last 5 games against the Kangaroos. He's getting the tag. Yes, once again, I know that's in the midfield. But I've just got a feeling that if the Kangaroos are obviously really wanting to shut down Essendon's probably best player, now that Archie Roberts is out as well, he's everything going out of that back line. I think they'll send someone, whether that's a Finn O'Sullivan, whether that's a Jai Simpkin, or maybe if it's, I don't know, a Jacob Constanti even maybe in the forward line that goes to him. I just think it's risky to fade him with the ceiling. So maybe it's just lowering salary across competitions.
So let's have a look at this, right? He does it. Let's say he's playing halfback, and let's say, actually, before we talk about that halfback role, if he goes through the midfield, if they flick that, he cops a tag.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so if that doesn't happen, he's playing halfback, and he can get tagged there, or they may not. I don't think they'll try and tag him if he's at halfback personally. That's my gut feel. However, if we consider that scenario, then North Melbourne are the second worst matchup for designated kickers.
Yeah.
In terms of coming out of the back half. So the matchup is disgusting as is. They are highly restrictive to those sorts of players. In the past 5 weeks, the highest score from a distributor coming out of that back line is 115. That's the highest score in the last 5 weeks. That was from Jaden Short last week, and it was from Luke Ryan in round 13. Next highest score after that is 109 in round 10 from Rory Laird. So it's not a great matchup, regardless of where he's playing.
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing is, even if he doesn't get a tag, is the other points going to be there for him?
Yeah, I don't know. And you just feel this game too. I don't know. It's a hard one to read a little bit, I think, in terms of a Zach Merritt here. I feel like he should be in our team, given the week and how good a player he is, and it's Zach Merritt. But yeah, this has me questioning it. To me, I'm actually going a Brayshaw. To me, I feel like I know what's going to happen in that game more than I do in this game for a Zach Merritt.
I think there's just a lot of questions around, I guess, the role and who goes to him. If the game was being played at the MCG, I'd be keen. I'm just not sure at Marvel under the lid, smaller venue, potentially, like you said, restrictive opposition. Yeah, I don't know. It's one that I'm really undecided on at the moment. I know he'll be highly popular across all standard competitions, so it could be a scary
That's the
fade
risk.
if you do choose to go that way. So yeah, decisions have to be made there.
All right, pause on that one. So who else can we go to then? Who are you liking? I know we've talked about Sam Walsh before, but mate, I don't know if I can
Before
go there.
Before we go to Sam Walsh, there's someone in the same game, the Kangaroos Bombers, that I'm actually keen on, and he was one of
Oh
our
yeah.
pods last week, and that was
Oh
Luke Parker.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last week 137 when we spoke about him and LDU as potential pods. Obviously, LDU absolutely stunk it up. So we're not even going to talk about him as an option. But Luke Parker in that defensive role, we spoke about Caleb Daniel for the matchup. Obviously, Luke Parker fits the same mold. He only had the one kick in last week, so scoring that 137. I think he had 12 marks, couple tackles. He's just got the ball on an absolute string at the moment. The Bombers are the second easiest
Yeah.
matchup for the season for opposition defenders and the easiest over the last 5 weeks. So it's kind of the reverse for Zach Merritt there. Luke Parker has an elite matchup. It's his third best matchup for his career. He scored 157 against them in round 3 this season. That was played at Marvel, which obviously, as we just mentioned, it's the same venue this weekend. So it's just ticking all the boxes for me right now. And I'm feeling it really hard not to pick a Luke Parker this week.
Well, we spoke about last week the safety that comes with picking Luke Parker too. Like he's averaging 112 for the season. He hasn't dropped below, or actually his lowest score was 76 in round 2. Next lowest was 82 in round 8, and then really like it's a 90. Otherwise, he's been going over 100. In his last 3 games, he's 137, 107, 112. He's hit good scores of 144, 157. Like, I just think that, yeah, there's an element of safety with this pick with the potential upside of a ceiling. And I have a much clearer read on a Luke Parker and how he's going to go in this game versus a Zach Merritt and how he's going to go in the same game with the other with those variables at play there. So you'll see there on screen, I've actually just gone to the liberty of putting him on our bench because I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, love it. All right, so we've got one spot left, and there's still plenty of mids to talk about.
Brayshaw.
Let's backtrack a little. Let's backtrack a little bit. We spoke about Errol Goulden earlier about his return, and we kind of said we're not keen for the matchup at the venue. We haven't spoken about the Lions boys in Lockie Neal or Will Ashcroft.
Yeah.
Are you keen on either of them in this matchup?
Nah, not really. I think they can go well, and I think one of them could go well. But I find it, I'm not going to be putting all my money into it. That's for sure, because I just think that, being the difficult matchup, I think it's going to be a really contested game up there at the Gabba, and I just find it really hard. Outside of an Isaac Heaney who kind of has twisted coaches' arms into playing him every single week because of how damaging he can be, I'm just getting a really I'm finding it hard to get a read on a Lockie Neal and a Will Ashcroft. What about you? Are you liking them, or are you tempted by one over the other?
I think Lockie Neal cops James Jordan, so I definitely probably not going to go there.
Given his form,
I think they just have to. Lockie Neal's the one that normally gets the tag, and it's been normally quite effective.
Can I just flag with that? I agree, and I'm not playing a Lockie Neal personally, but I also have a couple question marks over James Jordan. I don't know how effective he's been this year in his tagging role. Just quickly.
We'll go on number. You're right, probably this year, but just on the numbers against Lockie Neal, Lockie Neal scored 93 in round 1, and that was following a 46 in round 1 in 2025. So both times Jordan went to him. Highest score in the last 4 matchups with the Swans has been 136, and that was in the 2024 grand final. But they are the worst matchup of his career. So I'm just not really keen to touch that, regardless of maybe what James Jordan might be leaking, because I just think the matchup's kind of not there for him. If you are
first game of the round too. First game of the round to just roll up a Lockie Neal into a matchup you're not super confident on. It's a risky play, and it's not one that I'm super keen on. But prime time, obviously.
Yeah, lock him in for prime time. But Will Ashcroft's maybe the interesting one. Obviously, he hit that pop score last week against the Tigers before their bye. And if you read into a bit of the form line, if you're a person for trends, he's gone 134, 80, 127, and 89 in his last 4, which suggests that he is due for a big one. So, I don't know. I still don't think I'm going to go there, though.
Yeah, I feel like with a Will Ashcroft too, these are the games he likes to play in. the big game, under the lights, prime time, that's a Will Ashcroft game, particularly if Lockie Neal does cop a bit of attention. So, yeah, you could go a Will Ashcroft maybe over a Lockie Neal, but it's not one I'm confident on in a standard competition. So, under 22s, lock him in. But, yeah, let's maybe not put an Ashcroft into this side, mate. So, okay. Who else have we got, really? Like, have we talked about a Sam Walsh just yet?
We
then
haven't.
You can give me someone else.
I've got someone before we get to Sam Walsh once again. I think I'm kind of holding back on that Carlton West Coast game just for now.
Oh, look, I'll give it away. I'm not super keen on him either. I just feel like we need to in case coaches are looking at that matchup. But yeah, go on. Who's this player you're talking about?
One that we've kind of already talked, obviously, a lot about Zach Butters and the potential of maybe a James Jordan. Sorry, not James Jordan, James Peatling. If you're looking for someone that is going to maybe pop a ceiling score, Jason Horne-Francis has gone over 144 times this season, but he also has 4 scores under 80. So there's risk versus reward. We spoke about how the Crows are an easy matchup for opposition mids. He's gone 78, 105, 135, 73 in his last 4. So he's definitely not scoring as well as a Zach Butters. And I think obviously that's why Butters is a lock. And maybe there's question marks over a Horne-Francis, which is with history in this matchup. But if you are keen on chasing that elite ceiling that he possesses and the ability to go forward, and you think that a James Peatling will roll with a Butters instead, then I don't mind the pick at all this week.
I reckon Peatling goes to Horne-Francis personally.
Yeah, and that's probably fair.
I just think
but
that I think he's a great shout. And, he's someone that we've spoken about before at times on the pod. But I think you know what you're getting with a Zach Butters, and I think you don't know what you're getting with a Horne-Francis. That's where I'm kind of... If you've got if you want to throw a pod into your team, I really like it because he does have a ceiling, and that's what you need from your point of difference. But yeah, he's had scores of 157, 122, 106, 147 in his last 4. So he's in a purple patch at the moment. And his form against the Magpies, particularly last week, he had 19 kicks, 11 handballs. So that's 30 disposals, 9 marks. Even in his 3 games before that against the Swans, Eagles and Blues, he's kicked 2, 3 and 3 goals. I think if they put attention into a Cozzy who's playing that midfield role and hits the scoreboard, really damaging player, that's Horne-Francis. That's not a Zach Butters. So
the only thing that I think is Cozzy and Horne-Francis are very different builds of player. Obviously, Horne-Francis is probably that little bit bigger, that little bit stronger. Peatling's probably more a perfect matchup body-wise for a Butters. But yeah, if you're looking at the way they tag the impact player, then maybe it is him. But I think just once again, it comes back down to the Zach Merritt discussion. The uncertainty and maybe the question marks that are there, if it's enough to just kind of go, well, that's not for me. But once again, if you are maybe keen on chasing that ceiling, then you may as well throw that dart as a bit of a pod.
Did you rattle off his last 4 against the Crows? I can't remember.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Up like too good, too poor. Like I just feel like that's him at the moment. Is like he can give you a great score, or he cannot. So yeah, it's a great shout. The matchup is there. On paper. It's just not one I'm super confident locking into that last spot for us there, mate.
Yeah. All right. Blues and Eagles. So Sam Walsh, I'm not keen. I think a lot of people probably will be this week. He scored 124 last week against the Giants, had 34 disposals, but 23 handballs and only the 2 tackles. And we know when Sam Walsh is putting up monster numbers, he's got high disposals, high tackles, and high marks. But just the ability to handball happy, we always say it, he just seems to have more handballs than kicks every single week, and it's really impacting his ceiling. He's only got that one big score, and we spoke about it earlier against Freo, 157 for the season. Other than that, I think every other score has been below 130. So despite the Eagles being the 4th easiest matchup for the season and the 6th easiest over the last 5 weeks for opposition mids, I think that Walsh gets Hoff. He'll get some attention there. So I'm just not really keen, even though he scored 148 points against them last year, which is thanks to 37 disposals and 3 goals, mind you.
Oh, very hard not to pick someone when they do that, though. But
is he going to kick 3 goals? Probably not. That's not realistic.
My thing with Sam Walsh is that he has burned me twice this year, and I
Yeah.
remember each of them vividly. And they were good matchups, just like this one. And we went in there, and we were like, yes, like how can you not go a Sam Walsh here? And he just hasn't done what we've expected in those games. And then it's typically the games where we haven't picked him out, like last week against the Giants at NG Stadium, he goes 122. Against the Cats, where we thought he might get tagged, he goes 124. Against the Bombers, 83.
Yeah.
And hurts himself apparently. And it's just one that I go, I've read this book before. I don't want to read it again. So,
No.
yeah, other coaches probably will, and they'll probably get rewarded.
Yeah, probably.
I can't bring myself to put him in that last spot.
All right, so
he needs to prove himself.
I've got an option for you. If you're not keen on Walsh, I think he gets Hoff, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
Cripps might be a good option, but I'm not going maybe anywhere near that. I've got another one of his teammates, and I think he's a bit of a pod. At the time of
is this who you're telling me about?
This is at the time of recording. Have seen the Supercoach Sawblade boys talk about this, and it kind of reaffirmed my belief. George Hewitt coming off
he's someone I had
147 last week. 120, 147 in his last two. Since he's kind of returned to the side, he's gone 94, 61, 101, 90, kind of just warming up a little bit. 120, 147. So great matchup. Great matchup. We just spoke about the Eagles being good for opposition midfielders. Huey last week, 30 disposals, 9 marks, 1 goal, 4 tackles, 67% CBAs.
Yeah.
I don't mind it as a pod. He's currently sitting in my contender side.
Oh, okay. So this is where we're at. All right.
So if we look at
mate, I like it. I genuinely hadn't considered George Hewitt.
If we look at their CBAs from last week, it's a clear 3. It's Cripps 88%, Walsh 83%, and Huey 67%. And then it goes down to Jager 54, and that's pretty much it. Like,
the thing I like about a George Hewitt is that who's going to cop attention? Like if you go the order, it's going to be Walsh and Cripps, and you can toss a coin, right? Either of them could cop attention. No one else after that. We've talked about, obviously, it's going to be Nick Newman potentially as that key distributor from a Milan Murdoch, but George Hewitt's going to cop no attention whatsoever, and he never will. So in a good matchup, like a positive matchup for mids, he's the one that will cash in. So, mate, I actually don't mind.
The only flag that I do have is the fact that maybe, and this is a maybe, he goes to Harley Reid at stoppages and plays a bit of a defensive role on him.
He would have done that in other games.
Yeah, maybe. So this is the other thing, and I was going to say this. If this doesn't make you pick George Hewitt, I don't know what will. Last 3 against West Coast. You ready?
Yeah.
116, 140, 155.
Do I have a George Hewitt?
He's averaged 30.
Because that might be the
30. He's averaged 36.3 disposals in that span. He's had a game of 10 tackles. I find it hard to kind of go against it for the matchup.
Is that too? Oh, I don't even have a bronze of him. All right, so that might be my decision. Do I have a silver?
Side.
I have a silver. Oh, geez, yeah, maybe in Challenger. Is it too much to put a silver of him in? I don't think so.
We spoke about it at the start. We're just putting the cards that we've got. Like, salary at the moment doesn't really matter.
Right.
But yeah, that's the pod or for the week.
I
saw Roscoe talk about it.
I feel like we've got 2 pods there. Is that 2 out
We
there?
do, but they're great matchups.
Yeah.
But the scary
thing
thing is we don't have a Zach Merritt.
Yeah, well, you got to leave someone out, hey. So I feel like we've talked about why we haven't included a Zach Merritt, and I think that if you do include a Zach Merritt, I think you're entitled to. I think that they're just a few things that we're not super concerned with. If you look at Are you more confident in George Hewitt versus Zach Merritt? Probably.
Or
It
an
is
Eddie
risky though
Bray.
because he's not as confident, but I'm more confident in Brayshaw. So I would be putting a Brayshaw there as well. So Brayshaw, Hewitt, Parker, I like a couple of those options. So he probably goes in there for me.
And just two more. A lot of people kind of speaking about it since he's come back. Will Day, I still want to see his time on ground just increase just a little bit more before we start to pick him in standard competitions. We know he's an absolute gun of a footballer.
Yeah.
Just want to see that time on ground. He's scoring well, but for that ceiling, we want to see that time on ground increase. In the same game, if you are keen, Finn Callahan and Clayton Oliver could be decent picks as well. Not going to rattle too much off them. Obviously, the Hawks are pretty restrictive across the board as a rule. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much our 7. I throw in Brayshaw and Merritt there, and I think that's probably the 9 that you're choosing from. And then
like
if
that.
you are maybe a Goulden lover and you want to play him in his first game back, he's probably the 10th. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. They're good shouts. So let's move on to our ruck line. I think we put a unicorn in there.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a lock. So obviously on the bye this week, we've got Gorney and Timmy English. And then it's just come out at the time of recording that Tristan Cherry has been ruled out for this week and potentially next week as well with that little bit of a fractured jaw. So we can't be picking a Sherry, which really limits our option, like our quality options in the ruck line. Luke Jackson, obviously, what he scored 188 last week. How can you go against that this week, regardless if he's coming up against the Suns twin tower duo there? You're locking that in. So the decision really comes down to a Brodie Grundy or a Darcy Cameron. And for me, Darcy Cameron the last couple of weeks has been absolutely terrible. 61 points last week against the Power, which was followed by an 82 before their bye against the D. So that's 7 scores under 100 for the season. And if we're looking for someone for consistency and the ability to hit 100 on a regular basis, you're tossing up Brodie Grundy or Darcy Cameron. Brodie Grundy is that person. Even if he has a down game, he still just manages to get to 100. He doesn't really drop these 60s on you.
Well, he did in round 1.
Yes,
and he did in round 9. And do you know who he played in round 1?
I know it was the Lions. I know he's had a tough pass against them, but Darcy
do you know
Cameron
what his recent form is?
He just looks terrible.
Grundy looks terrible. Do you know what his last 3 are?
Grundy just had the bye. He'll be fresh.
Oh, actually, no, sorry. There's been more news come out. I don't know. Did you see my message?
Well, time of recording is Tuesday.
At time of recording, we've had a little glitch you probably have noticed there with Haz wearing the jumper, is that it's actually now Wednesday night. And we've had news come out that Peter Laddams has been brought into the side for the Sydney Swans. They're rolling with a dual ruck setup at the Gabba against one of the toughest matchups in 4 rucks, and they're the worst matchup for him for his whole career. He's coming off a score of 61 against them as the solo ruck at the SCG. I think it is Darcy Cameron, hands down. I'm actually going to put him in. I'm going to fight you on this, and here's why, mate. Out of all those scores, you said 7 scores under 100. Go and count up how many he was in a dual ruck setup with Oscar Steen.
The last 2 weeks he wasn't.
Yes, last 2 weeks, but they've played the Port Power, which are a restrictive matchup for 61, and he's also played Gorn for the Melbourne Demons, where a restrictive matchup for 82. He's coming into a good matchup. Top mate, Tigers are the 6th easiest matchup for opposition rucks this season. His last 2 against them, 111 or 122. But more importantly for me, he's the sole ruck at the moment. He's had 81%. Yeah, for now. What can happen? We might have to come back tomorrow night, mate. They could have a dual ruck set up.
They did draft a mid-season recruit ruckman, so who knows?
They haven't played him yet. So
he was pretty poor last week.
I'm going to make a controversial decision this week. I think it's Jackson Cameron, and I think you're not looking at anyone else personally.
Cameron had only 11 hitouts last week from 75% ruck contests. That's atrocious.
Well,
that's less than Sherry. And Sherry only played 25%.
Look, it's not his strength. But what is his strength? He's getting around the ground, clunking a few marks, and And at least he's the sole ruck. At least he's getting a chance to get one of his 11 hit outs. So I think for me, I'm not look in this second spot. We're not playing any salary on this second ruck this week, whether it's Grundy or Cameron. And I think it probably comes down to the cards you've got. I'll be rolling a Grundy and Challenger, and I'm genuinely considering a Darcy Cameron. I think if they bring in a second ruck, I'm going straight across to Grundy for safety. I think at the moment, mate, I think I kind of have to go Darcy Cameron. He's got the better matchup, and he's the number one ruck.
You have an hour to do that, so hopefully they announce that in their team list come tomorrow night. But yeah, wow, I don't love either of them, to be honest. Is there anyone else that we can pick?
Well, maybe. Let's actually go have a look at the fixture.
There's not. That's the reason we've only spoke about 3, because there's really not.
Briggsy?
Nah.
BJ's a forward, not a ruck.
The other one, Lockie McAndrew as a pod.
Yeah, again, Port Adelaide aren't a great matchup,
exactly.
But he's probably better than the others.
So no Sherry.
Yeah, I don't mind that as a pod.
You're not going one of the Suns boys. Could you go Jordan Sweet? He doesn't really have a scoring history.
Well, no, not against Lockie McAndrew.
So yeah, but before last week, the highest score against McAndrew was 113 for the season before Max Gorn went 130. So yeah, you're not going there. So it is really only 3 options. And you pick,
and then
out of that,
I think they'll end up.
Don't get much of the muchness, really, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Well,
I think that's where we're at, and I think we wait for teams.
Let's leave Cameron in there for now. I don't love it, but we'll just move on.
Yeah, it's one of those weeks. All right, Harry Sheasel, Diesel Weasel. Let's chuck him in. I think he's our captain this week.
Yeah, Degoe, he's the second lock. He's just unreal at the moment.
Yeah, great. What a play in that forward line. Hey?
Great matchup. He could nearly go 150 this week against the Tigers. I think if you're looking to play salary, he might be a bit of a salary pod there. I know our NRL fantasy bros counterparts in the NRL space, Dylan Stew, talk about the salary pod quite a bit, and maybe Jordan Degoe might be that this week.
I like it. I'm going to chuck a silver in. Let's do it. I've actually got a gold for him in Classic too, by the way.
Okay, there we go.
Before we go talk about anyone else, on the bye, Cats forwards. So Myers, Jezza, Manor. We've got Tom Sparrow, Cozzy Pickett, Brad Hill, Max Hall, Riley Sanders, Connor Buderick. There's probably others.
So many.
There's a lot of players we can't be picking from this week who are actually quite relevant. I think another player I have locked in pretty quickly, mate, is an Isaac Rankin.
Oh, yeah. I don't think
come back from injury.
Yeah, what was his CBAs? I'll just quickly bring that up because the chat was everyone was like, "Oh, he'll go."
One thing we need to mention.
He'll go forward. He had 74% CBAs, which is the most. Sorry, no, second most behind Jordan Dawson.
Check out his time on ground too.
What was his time on ground? Do you have that in front of you?
Pretty high as well.
I'll pull it up quickly.
Yeah, I can pull it up.
No, that's right, I got it.
But no, it was surprisingly high.
76%. So yeah, they didn't ease him back in.
Higher than I would have thought.
22 touches.
So I think in a showdown.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Lock him in.
Yep. Now, I think another one, Christian Petrarca, he's the interesting one.
Oh, it's been average.
Yes, he's been underwhelming. Yeah, he has been average, but we're in the forward line.
I know.
Are we really going to be criticising a Christian Petrarca for going 96, 86, 81? Like, they're some of his worst scores for the season. He's playing his worst at the moment. I just feel like yes, you might be able to get away with not playing him this week against the Dockers, but I'm probably one that's just like, I'm just picking Christian Petrarca.
We just listed all those players that are on the bye. There's so many in the forward line. I think you kind of just have to lock in a Petrarca. Like, yes, 96 last week in the forward line. You take that at the end of the day. But if we look at the way he scored that 96, he had 31 touches and kicked a goal. So you think that, okay, we probably would have scored 100, but he had 22 handballs and barely any marks, barely any tackles. So to nearly scrape to a ton, I think you just got to go there regardless of the matchup.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a safe pick.
Well, that's the thing. If you go, oh, I'm not going to play a Christian Petrarca this
He'll
week.
go 150.
Or we picked out a Brent Daniels last. Yeah, he could. But we picked out a Brent Daniels last week, who we really liked as a pod. He went 88. We picked out Joe Richards as a pod last week, and he went 59 or something
Oh,
like that. There's every chance if you don't pick him and play someone else, like you're losing points anyway. So I think for me, I'm not going to gamble on a Christian Petrarca in the forward line there, particularly on a week like this. If we had the full complement of forwards to pick from, maybe we could look at it. But I don't think in this week in the forward line I'm going to do that. And speaking of probably another that fits in the same boat in terms of not having a great matchup in the forward line, I think Zach Bailey is another must play down there.
Yeah, so yeah, not a great matchup for him. Obviously Sydney, but I think he's just once again limited options, elite form, elite ceiling on his day. Can still kick goals, have a couple 20 odd touches. So yeah, I think you still got to play him this week.
And he'd have some okay form against the Swans as well. I think from memory, in some of those recent games against them, I'll just quickly pull it up and have a look there for us as well. He's had, not amazing. He's averaging 94 across his last 4 games. So that's 123 points round 22 last year.
Yep.
And then before that, 85, 83, 86. So not amazing. But again, mate, if he's putting up an 80 odd, I'll probably take that this week.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so we've got 2 spots left to round out our team. Is there anyone else that's kind of standing out for you as an option? You just mentioned Brent Daniels as a bit of a pod last week.
Yeah.
Are you keen on either him or Toby this week in a difficult Hawks matchup?
Yeah, I think you can. I'm not as keen on them this week. Again, the Hawks aren't one you'd necessarily target, I don't think. Looking at that data as well, like for our midfielders there, because that's the role that Brent Daniel was playing. He's still at 92% CBAs last week, so he's
That's
clearly
insane.
Yeah, I know. So I think you can pick him based on the role, like it's still there. But for me, it's just that Hawks mashup is not ideal. So it's the 5th hardest for opposition mids this season, 2nd hardest for forwards as well. So I haven't looked too much made into what Toby Green, for example, has done on them in the past. If they're a good matchup for him, I don't think they would be just
I'll
from
quickly
the
bring it
top of my
up.
head. So for me, having not looked at that, no, they're not. It's not probably a matchup I'm going to go and chase. I think the other reason why is because at the MCG, the way I sort of see this game going is the Giants have been struggling recently, and I feel like the Hawks will get on top of them here. And so I don't really want to go and pick a couple of players or a player from a team where I feel like they might not get the win here. So I'm not loving either of those two.
So Toby, last 5, he's gone 87, 72, 96, 117, 65 for an average of 87. So once again, if he scores an 87, you probably take that this week.
Yeah.
If we're looking at the scores at the MCG, his last 2, 96, 117. So they were the better scores. He actually scores worse at home against the Hawks. So maybe it is a play this week.
Do we put him in? Be popular?
I still have people ahead of him.
Okay, well, one I have ahead of him is playing in the Dockers and the Suns game. Again, just sort of thinking how that game is going to go. I actually have a Murphy Reed as one I'm actually really keen on to play this week. Would you be keen to put a Murphy Reed in?
Yep, that was one that I was going to mention myself. So yeah, plug him in. 59% CBAs for Murphy Reed. He's clearly in that midfield mix now. He looked at getting Geelong were giving him attention at some point. He is just in elite form.
Yeah.
There you go. You can see it on screen. 117, 120, 111, 115. Only one score under 100 in his last 5. So yeah, I think you just got to lock that.
Yeah, he looks so good the way he's playing too, and they like the ball in his hands. So for me, I'm pretty confident with a Murphy Reed this week, and I think that the Suns they leak some of those points we've spoken about, and I feel like a Murphy Reed is a beneficiary of that. So I think for me, I'm happy with him. What about his teammate, Shea Bolton?
I was just about to ask, could you go Shea Bolton as well? And my answer is yes. I don't mind Shea Bolton. I'm normally quite critical of the pick. I thought about it last week. Once, a couple of things just didn't, with Baz out, and I was like, oh, Geelong are going to be weak. And I was like, no, I won't. I'll stick to my guns. Obviously got to that 81, but geez, at halftime, he was on track for a big one, and he was just absolutely everywhere before he dropped off the cliff. So His
That's the
score,
flag
like
with him though, is that he
that,
can go missing in a game. Like he can be red hot. Like he took that mark, he was flying at half time, and then he just ticks over 80. Like he can do that, and that's why I like a Murphy Reed more than I do a Shea
yes,
Bolton. But yes, I still do like a Shea this week because I feel like he's the one that has the ceiling as well.
yeah, well, 158 like this year, so there aren't many other
Yeah,
scores. Obviously, that 128, 129 to start the season, but no other scores over 120. So yes, he does have that elite ceiling, but maybe doesn't have a consistent ceiling as well. So one to consider.
yeah, hard
But
to
no,
beat.
I don't mind that pick. But you could also potentially get a 60. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's go with Murphy Reed. I'm happy with that for now. Who else can we have? Who's going to round out our forward line? Is it a Toby Green? I don't know if we're going to go an extra Adelaide forward. I think I'm just happy with the one in Isaac Rankin. I don't think I
yeah,
really want to go a Thilthorpe or a Shelley. I think, yeah, Toby Green is a maybe. What about
Connor
in the
McDonald.
same game? Yeah, I was going to say, what about a Connor McDonald? I think he could be one who's been scoring quite well this year. I've got McDonald / Ginnivan. Now, again, I probably don't love either, but I also don't love many forwards this week. So we're really having to pick someone. I've got a pod for you in a sec as well, actually, who I actually would be more keen on.
So
Last three scores, 95, 96, 121.
so Connor McDonald, and we've kind of spoke about this off air a little bit in the recent weeks, and during the preseason, we obviously the reason we were so hyped about Connor McDonald was he scores so well with Will Day not in the side because he gets the bump.
Yeah,
Will Day's come back. Round 10 had 47% CBAs. Will Day comes back in round 11, I think it was, or it might have been round 12. CBAs have gone down to 26, 30, 36, 26. So the role, it's consistent for what it's been for the season, but the scoring just doesn't really seem to be as consistent for him. He is relying on hitting the scoreboard, high mark numbers to get that score ticking over. But once again, maybe in a week like this week, it's something that you just go, okay, if he kicks one goal, gets his 20 touches, he'll just be there or thereabouts, and it'll be pretty much the same as everyone else. And maybe you just go the safe pick.
yeah, and he's got the upside to hit an okay score in there as well.
Yeah, but look at that last six. I don't love that last six. Only one score over 100.
Yeah, it's not ideal, and he's had some low scores in there too. But the other thing with the Connor McDonald that I don't love is that I feel like every time I play him, mate, he's always on the bench. Like he'll always start on the bench, and then he'll
Yes,
come on. He'll go okay, and then he'll just come back off to the bench. And I just feel like he's always there. But in the last 2 weeks, his time on ground's been 84%, and the week before that, 81%, which is higher than what he typically is. He's typically around that 70 to mid 70s sort of player. So it's actually higher than I thought, and he's still getting some CBAs. So he's sort of around that 25 to 30% in the last month. So
he started on the
but you're right,
bench,
it's
I
the
think,
Will Day.
last
Yeah, it's the
week.
Will Day factor. He's essentially that high half forward who rolls through a couple stoppages and yeah, it's one that you can definitely go for. I'm not overly confident with it, but I think you could. So can I also twist your arm into a Harry Mackay
Go and
as a
try
pod?
it, but I don't think you'll be able to succeed.
No? Well, let's see how we go. Basically, the thinking here for me, in terms of picking a Harry Mackay,
No Ruben
one,
Jimby.
yeah, no Ruben Jimby. So that's the first thing is that I just wonder what that matchup will look like for him. But the second thing is that Mackay has actually been like sneaky consistent for me, and he's one I looked at the start of the week. If I was going to go a Carlton forward this week against West Coast, it's probably a Harry Mackay. So his last, look at his scores there in the last few weeks: 96, 103, 83, 107, 90, 128. He's surprisingly consistent, and you'll notice that like he doesn't need a lot of goals each week to do it. Even that week where he didn't kick a goal, he still scored 83. And he can tick over 100 with even just one goal. So for me, mate, I reckon that he could actually go all right at Marvel, take a few marks around the ground. I feel like the Blues will get up, and I feel like he could kick a goal or two. So for me, I'm actually like more confident in a Harry Mackay than a Connor McDonald, which is weird to say.
Very weird to say, but yeah, look, the reasoning's there. Maybe it's one for my contender side, but I don't know if I could go there in main comps, but it also wouldn't surprise me to see him go 110 plus.
Yeah. All right. Where are we going then? We've had a lot of players we've just listed off.
I think flip a coin between Toby Green and Brent Daniels for me. I think it's just one of those boys. Toby Green's probably got the form and the consistency. Brent Daniels has got the role. You can make the final decision. I think that's where I'm probably leaning at the moment.
Yeah. God, I'm actually really tempted to go Harry Mackay.
Go on, just plug him in.
And just over. Let's do it.
Just plug him in.
Contender is our pod side.
This is just a pod side at the moment.
Yeah, I think if you are picking one, I think it's Toby Green. Just to throw that out there, because he's their best player, or one of, I should say. But in terms of forwards, he's their best forward, and he's their captain. I reckon that you plug in a Toby Green, but yeah, I don't mind a Harry Mackay, mate. I'm keen to throw that. We've talked about Contender. It's kind of where we put a few pods. This is probably a pretty. It's close to a template team, but there's definitely a lot of pods in there coaches could consider. So I don't mind that squad.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. Looks pretty good to me.
All right, mate. Well, any closing comments before we move on to the next part of our show?
Nah, let's move on to Bro Down Showdown.
Alrighty, mate. Here we are, Bro Down Showdown last week against Munchie Gaming. Shout out to Mian as well. A bit unlucky from the big fella because we had Luke Jackson on that first night just knock out that massive 188. And credit to Nando for Mian. He went a 170 but couldn't quite get the win there. And even still, we took it out 3-1 there with Bailey Dale outscoring Rory Laird. Jackson outscored Cameron, and Daniels outscored Joe Richards, who was very disappointing, unfortunately. But he got the win in the midfield with Noah Anderson over Ed Richards. So in terms of those people who voted for Fantasy Bros, I'll just pull them up on screen there quickly for us as well, mate. We had a few people who got in the comments there, and chuck the bros there on screen, hopefully. So we've got Jeff, Michael Cossey, Gunners, Reese B31, Maxi Hansen, and Jacob125. I'm going to spin. Let's see who's going to get a row in our common pack, mate. Or is it going to be Janeth or Jacob? Jacob125. There we go. Congratulations, mate. You've got a row in our common pack. And Haz, I believe you'll be pulling that up.
Yeah, we'll do right now. Alrighty, can you see that on screen?
Easy. I'll tell you what, mate. Yes, I can. I was going to say recording one night and then the next. I've lost track of all my tabs.
All right. For Jacob.
Right, let's see what we've got.
Alrighty. Do you want to pick the row that he's got there? Row or column, I should say.
Let's go middle column. Let's change it up.
Okay, middle column. Rightio. Got a Hugo Garcia, nice for under 22s.
Oh,
it was great last week. Harry Dean, another under 22s. And a Hayden McLean. It's not bad.
Dean,
all silver.
Yeah. Can this be a third? Oh, Hayden McLean. Yeah. Tell you, not bad. That Hugo Garcia, 155 was the last week.
Yeah, he was absolutely elite. I spoke about at the top of the show. Just killed my Sundays team. I didn't play him. Really hurt my chances. All right, mate. What column would you like?
Let's see what other cards we got, eh? Dylan Stevens, Tim Membry.
We'll just give you these cards up, I'd say. Oh, grim.
Yeah.
Ed Langdon, not bad for Sundays.
Good.
But
got a bit of a lag coming through too.
Right.
You continue on.
Yeah, I reckon Jacob's probably got the pick of the pack there with Hugo Garcia, Harry Dean, and Hayden McLean. So well done, Jacob. Make sure you hit us up on Discord or hit me up on Discord, and I'll organise that trade for you. Alrighty, so Bro Down Showdown, Mian. There we go. We're back to the Bro Down Showdown this week. It's prime time edition. Pitty does have the lead 8-4 over me, so I am hoping to get one back. I am definitely due for a win, that's for sure. So we can see these selections on screen. In our defensive line, I've gone Carl Amon over Pitty's Darcy Wilmot. I've gone Will Ashcroft, and Pitty's gone Will Day. So we'll have to say these are no plug and plays as well. In our ruck line, we decided to go with the ruck picks this week as a bit of a see who could score well in the pick of the rest, really. I've gone Briggsy over Pitty's Meeky, and then I've gone Brent Daniels over Pitty's Zach Bailey. So comment in the chat or on the video who you think will take out this prime time edition of Brodown Showdown. Can I make it 5-8, or can Pitty extend the lead once again?
It'll be a good Brodown Showdown, this one. It's going to be who can dodge the worst score in the ruck line, and I feel like a Will Ashcroft might get you the win here, mate, if it goes to 2-2. I feel like Ashcroft's the dog that has a ceiling in him, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he goes.
Let's hope so.
All right, and just a reminder, all our viewers as well, make sure you use that code FBAR26. Get yourself three 9-player common packs. Get on board with GameDay Squad. Remember, we've got so many things happening. Obviously, we have our women's season kicking off there in August. Our EPL will kick off around the same time again. Heaps of things going on, as always, in GameDay Squad. And next week, our Round 17 preview, back to the best, best teams, but we're back to all our players back in our lineup there, which will be really, really nice. I'll be looking forward to seeing a few more All-Stars getting around and a few more boys I haven't seen for a while. So it should be good, mate, and it should be nice to actually have everyone to pick from.
Yeah, that's it. Can't wait for it. Let's just hope we get through this week unscathed and come out hopefully on the other side of things still in a nice position to go the back half of the season. But yeah, as always, been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me on once again, and hopefully we've given an insight with a little bit of a different show this week for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, mate, and good luck to everyone for round 16.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode by the Fantasy Bros. If you want to show your support, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Also, make sure you check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search @FantasyBrosAU.